Hi everyone, welcome to our Learning Lab session today, which is on managing your month-end payment run. So in this session we're going to go through our recommended process for completing your month-end payment run. We'll be sharing our best practice tips as well as some troubleshooting advice that comes up commonly via support tickets. So just to give you an overview of what we're covering today. So this is our month-end process recommended steps. So you can see these are ordered in the way we would recommend completing them. And we'll talk through this in a bit more detail when we do our demo as to why you should do it in this order. So the first step here, pay your owners, which you'll do via the commission statement. I'll be talking through that in a bit more detail about going into some of the settings and different ways you can pay your owners. The second step is paying your suppliers, which you can do through the supplier statement. So the majority of you, I would imagine, have suppliers that you pay out for work done in properties or work done for yourselves. So we'll be going through how you can pay your suppliers. The third step of the process, so paying yourself your commission, which Tom will be taking you through in a bit more detail. And the final step is to reconcile your transactions. So we'll be looking at the Reconcile bank report, and Tom will be taking you through how that works and how you can use that to make sure that your bank payments match up with your payments in SuperControl. And finally, we're going to do a little section on top tips. So specifically how to handle owner payments and bookings and some of the commonly asked questions and problems that sometimes arise around doing that. Okay, so now, I'm just going to go into our demo account and we'll take you through this process. So the first step, as I described, was paying your owners. So into the agency and commission statement. So there's two sort of methods for paying owners. The first method is to pay your owners individually. And you'll probably all be familiar with this layout. So every owner will be listed in the screen here. And you can access each owner's statement individually, their own individual statement through this cog here. However, if you're a larger agency or a growing agency and you start to accumulate a lot of owners, which is what we hope you'll all be doing, there is also the ability to pay your owners in bulk, which can save you a lot of time. So I'll be taking you through how you can do that as well. First of all, though, I'm going to go into an individual owner statement here and just talk you through some of the settings and sort of common things that crop up when you're paying owners that you might not be sure about. So when you access the statement, you're obviously going to filter down your month that you want to make your owner, pay your owners for, just in here. So I've just got June selected as an example. Just something to point out here, you will see this option. Some of you might not be familiar with this, but you have the option to filter by owner payment date or holiday arrival date. What's really important here is that you use owner payment date to filter your statements. We are actually planning to remove the holiday arrival date from here, so it is just set to owner payment date. But by using owner payment date, it's going to pull through payments based on the commission settings you have set up for each owner. So you really want to be making sure that that's always selected when you're running your statements. Under your date filters, you have a range of settings here. Now, some of these are pretty self-explanatory. Something I would always point out, though, that we recommend having ticked is this don't show if customer hasn't paid. The reason being that you won't want to be making payment to owner unless you've received payment from the guest. So sometimes there might be reasons that the guest hasn't paid for their booking, whether it's a dispute, their credit card bounced, or whatever reason. But by making sure, by ticking this checkbox here, you're going to make sure that these unpaid payments aren't going to come up in the owner's statement, and you're not going to pay the owner for something that hasn't been paid to you. If you have paid the owner for a payment you haven't received for the guest, and for whatever reason you don't receive that payment, you can still charge that back to the owner as an expense, but it's obviously a bit of a manual process and a bit messy. So it's really good just to make sure this checkbox here is ticked. You also have something here that not a lot of people seem to be familiar with, but we think it's quite a useful setting, is this separate expenses column. So you can see in my example statement here, I have a couple of payments due to be paid to the owner for bookings. I also have a cleaning expense in here. So if I tick this separate expenses column, then you can see that it changes the layout of the statement quite significantly. So, sorry, just to go back to show that clearly. So if you don't have that setting ticked, you'll see that the expense just shows as a minus figure in the income column here, which for bookings is just money that's been paid. If this is ticked, then you'll see it adds these 3 additional columns into the statement. So the expense, rather than being a minus figure in the income, has its own separate column. So it essentially separates the income. The income just becomes the money that you've been paid, and the expenses are separate. So you can have that set up if you prefer the layout of that and the totals that pull through for that. Something else worth pointing out within these filter settings is you do have the option to remove certain columns from the statement that you send to the owner. So we do get questioned a lot, oh, can we take out this, can we take out that figure? You'll see in this link that if you open it, so the PDF relates to the owner's statement, but you can also apply these settings to the owner's login. You can hide columns from the statement. So if for some reason you didn't want to show the owners the total income for the booking, you can just tick that to hide it from the statement you send them. It won't hide it in the back end. You'll still be able to see anything, but when you email your statement to the owner, it'll just remove it from their attached statement. So moving down just to the statement itself here, the very top row, you'll see this brought forward balance. Now, because it's my demo account and it's nice and tidy, the brought forward balance is sitting at 0. But in your statements, if you ever see brought forward a figure in here as a brought forward balance, then what it usually means is that there's payments from previous months that are still outstanding and due to be paid to the owner. So what you can do to sort of investigate that is just change your start date, and you can go back however many months you need to, just to find out where that payment is coming from, that brought forward balance is coming from. If there are payments, and there might often be payments that are being left from previous months, again, it could be maybe a dispute over a payment, and there's lots of different reasons that might not have been paid in previous months. But if you're ready to make that payment to the owner and pay that brought forward balance to the owner this month, then you can use this checkbox here, adjust payments for previous months to payment date. So if you tick that, and you also, if there's a brought forward balance, there'll be a little tick box here under the mark as paid column. If you tick that to mark it as paid and select this checkbox here, when you make your payment to the owner, it's going to include that brought forward amount, and it's going to record it as the date the payment date you set here. So the owner will be able to see that they've now been paid for a previous booking that hasn't already been paid to them. When you're making your payment to the owner, you're probably all familiar with this, but all you need to put in here really is a caption. There is also this payment reference section. So can be quite useful to add in if you're paying your owner by backs, to put in the backs reference number, just so you can refer back to it and you can easily see which payment in your bank relates to which payments in the statement. And then just set the date you're paying your owner. There is the option to lock payments as well. So if you tick that, what it means is like payments that have already been made to the owner can't in any way be edited by anyone in the account. So if you're a larger agency and there's a lot of people in the account, it can be quite useful just to lock your payments. Once you've saved that, if you've locked the payments, you would need to contact us, the support team, if you needed to unlock them and make changes. But it's quite useful just if like I said, if there's a lot of people using the account. I'm not going to save this payment just because I'm going to move on to the bulk payments, and I want to sort of show you how to make your payments to owner if you want to do it in bulk. So just going back to the main commission statement page. So you will see here you have at the top an all owners section. And this is where you can view your statement for all owner payments for a date range, if it's a month end, so for that month. Again, the settings are very similar just to what's in the individual owner's statement. So if I just filter this down, you'll see it looks slightly different. So all the payments in here will be marked to pay. You can't untick payments to remove them from the payment run. But why this is handy if you have, like I said, a lot of owners. It's a really quick way, rather than having to go into each individual owner statement, to just look through and check all the payments in bulk. If you needed to make a change to or unmark, if you don't want to pay a certain payment to an owner, then you can just go back into that individual owner statement and untick the payment under the mark as paid column, just to remove it from the payment run. So the purpose of this statement is just to check the payments. If you want to make your payment to the owners, you just need to go back to the main page, and then you go into this bulk payments screen here. So again, you just filter down your dates, and you have the same filters as in your individual owner statement. The difference here is then you just see the total that's due to be paid to each owner for that month as one figure. If there's an owner that isn't due any payment, it'll just be greyed out. There's nothing to pay. But any owners that are due payments for the month will just be automatically ticked. If for some reason you don't want to pay a specific owner, you can just manually sort of untick them there. And then the payment itself, again, very similar to the individual owner statement. You're just doing this in bulk. So you just select your payment date in your caption. Again, you can put in a payment reference if you need to do that. And then rather than having to individually send out the email and like you have to do in the individual owner statement, you can send out a bulk email so that each owner will receive their individual statement at the same time. So you do have quite a few options in here in terms of when you want the email to send that you don't have in the individual owner statement. So you can just tick send now, and it will push the email and the statement out to owners as soon as you save the payment. You have the option to send in payment date. So if your payment date is different to the date you're actually checking your statement and doing the payment run. So if I was to do it on the 1st, it would send the email out to the owners with your statement on the 1st. Or you can actually set a custom date and time that you want the email to trigger out to the owners. So this is really useful if your payment, you want to just send your owner statements on a different day as the day you're doing your payment run. I'm just going to click send now. I don't have an owner statement email in my test account, but I'll just choose and then just save. And that's the owner payment run done. So you can see if you're doing the bulk payment run, it might be a much better method, as it's definitely a time saver compared to going through the individual owner statements. So the second step, as I sort of detailed in my PowerPoint, is to how to pay your suppliers. So under the agency menu again, you'll find your supplier statement just here. So any suppliers you have added into your account will just be listed here individually, similar to the owners. And then you can access their individual statements just by clicking this button. If you have payments that you need to make to your suppliers that haven't been detailed as expenses in bookings or in the owner's statement, but are sort of external to SuperControl, you can use this bulk entry button here just to add payments directly into the supplier statement. So if I use just this cleaning one here, so you can have these if it's perhaps the supplier's done work for you for multiple owners. You don't have to have an individual owner attached to these payments, but you can also select an individual owner from here. And then you can just do your caption and enter your figures in here, and this will just add the payment directly into the supplier statement. And just to show you the supplier statement, it's pretty similar to the owner statement, but slightly more basic. You have your date range here that you filter down. And again, some settings just for things that you can show in the statement, or yeah, just things you can show in the statement there. Just going to filter this. And yeah, so this will pull through any expenses that have been assigned to that supplier in bookings or directly into the statement, or any bulk payments that you've added in the method I've just shown you. And again, similar to the owner's statement, it'll just auto-populate this figure up here with any payments that are due. And you can obviously untick anything that you don't want to pay to that supplier in this month. And again, just add your caption here and save. And it will just add your payment entry into the bottom and clear your balance like so. Okay, so I'm going to let Tom take over now just so he can take you through the next steps. Let me just stop my share.
Thanks, Laura. That was a really good overview and a lot of tips and tricks for how to deal with those statements. Probably a lot of things many people didn't know about, or there might be functions there that weren't so clear. Mm-hmm. But we do, we have a lot of really good material in the Help Center that goes through the entire process in bits rather than, Laura's gone through both of those steps together. But it is definitely worth checking that out as well after the session today. So that brings us nicely up to the next stage of the process. So let me just share my screen. Just checking you can see that, Laura.
Yes.
Perfect. Just don't want to be going along with a blank screen for 20 minutes. Okay, so Laura's now paid off her owners. And the next stage in the process, of course, is paying commission to yourself. So you're essentially marking that commission as paid to yourself, which will then send it to the bank reconciliation, which I'm also going to look at. So we want to go to view payments here. And you can select an owner, or you can have all owners in here. I'm just going to select the owner that Laura was looking at there. But in most cases, you'll pay this off in bulk. So what I'll do here is filter that report. And there's the payment that Laura made. So this doesn't refer to individual records on the statement. It just refers to actual payments. So what you can do is click into the payment and you can see all of the records that are contained within it. It's the same as it does in the statement and what the individual commission breakdowns are. And like I say, this report here is just so that you can pay your commission to yourself. And you've got a commission of £400. And we click on pay commission and it says, are you sure? I'm sure. And we click OK. And then if I filter that report again, the same owner, it's now grayed out, and that's because it's already been paid. So there's nothing left on the total. And that will now show in my bank reconciliation report, and I can reconcile that along with the other transactions. So there's not much to paying commission to yourself, really. You just generate this report, you choose the payments, if not all of them, that you want to pay the commission to yourself for, and you click on pay commission. And if for any reason you want to export this report, you can do, as with most things in SuperControl, with the CSV button. So next in the process is reconciling your bank with what's in SuperControl. So in agency reports and reconcile bank, this should be a definitive record of what's in your bank at any one time. The top of this page, you've got the reconcile forward, and that's just everything that's been reconciled to date. And it's just a case of ticking the items that you want to reconcile and clicking reconcile. So the items that will be shown on this report are payments from guests in bookings, and it will show you these are all payments from guests in the relevant booking numbers, and you can click through to them if you wish. It will also show payments to suppliers, so there's this payment to supplier that Laura made there. And there's also the payment to the owner that Laura made. No, it's not, that's not the one. Laura, do you remember what date that payment was?
30th
Of May?
of June.
Of June?
That's a month.
Oh, okay. So I have to go a bit ahead to find that. No, that's fine. In a normal situation, you would just reconcile to the date you're on. I think I need to go probably one ahead on that.
Yeah, sorry, I was just sort of mimicking if it was an actual month.
Oh, no, it's no worries. It still makes sense completely. So
yeah, that is the
Laura's
payment.
Yeah. So there's Laura's payment there, which we can now reconcile. So again, you've got guest transactions, you've got owner payments. So both of these are owner payments. We can see that because these are the owner payment names, and the easy way to differentiate is that the guest payment will have a payment method, a booking number, etc. And the owner payment will just have a owner name, although it does appear in the customer name column. But like I say, it's quite easy to differentiate. And the supplier statements, payments always have a reference in here to the supplier. And then of course, the last thing is your commission paid to yourself, which is the one that I've just processed. So that should be all of the transactions that you process within SuperControl on this list, and then you can reconcile that with your bank. And again, you just tick the ones you want to reconcile, if not all, and click on reconcile.
One thing I'll just add to that, if you don't mind, Tom, just because it came up the other day when I was speaking to someone, in terms of if you're using a payment processor, sometimes what you might find is that although the payment has been taken in SuperControl, it's not cleared in your bank yet. If that does happen, you can still obviously use this report. All you would need to do is untick the payments that haven't cleared in your bank, and then they can just be included in your next month's month-end bank reconciliation. So that's just something to be aware of if you're using this report and have a payment processor.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Laura. And also, the last thing to look at on this report is you can, if let's say you've just started using SuperControl, or you've got payments outside in your bank account that aren't recorded in SuperControl for whatever reason, you can adjust this reconcile balance so that it matches what's in your statement. And to do that, you can just click on enter custom bank receipt or payment, and it can be either a payment or a receipt. And you just add the amount in with a caption. It adds it to the list. I'm not going to add it, it's straightforward to do. And you tick it along with the rest of the reconciled amounts, and that will reconcile your bank balance to match this report. So that's worth remembering as well. And this separate card supplements here, just in case anyone's wondering, it's largely irrelevant because you can't charge a card supplement anymore as of a good few years now. So it's something I think we're planning to remove. So like I say, largely irrelevant there. So now if we tick all of these, let's just reconcile it to the date that Laura's got her payment in there. So if we could just imagine that we're on the 1st of July at the moment, and we can reconcile all of that to that date. So we've time traveled a little bit, but it's fine. We've reconciled all of those transactions. It tells us who's reconciled it, and that goes by your user login and the date in which that happened. And then if I wanted to see a list of all reconciled transactions, I can go to Agency Reports and Reconciled Transactions. And I can choose the date that items were reconciled on, and these will all refer to actual days where that button has been clicked, Reconcile Transactions, and that will show me a definitive list of everything that's been reconciled to the date that we choose, or on the date, sorry, that we choose from this drop down. So that's basically the whole sort of process, isn't it, Laura, for your own payment run. So hopefully that's been useful. Hopefully there's been some sort of tips and tricks for best practice there. Hopefully we've explained a few things that possibly didn't make sense before, or perhaps maybe you've not used some of these reports before and you want to going forward. And hopefully that has equipped you well to do so.
I think I was just going to say, I think there's obviously a lot of different statistics and reports you can generate in SuperControl, but I think these are the key steps just to make sure that you're going to avoid sort of any errors or discrepancies. Because I mean, worst case scenario, if you're not sort of using the optimal processes, you could be losing money, or there could be errors with your sort of banking. So it's really just a sort of good way to make sure that that's not going to happen. Is just by following at least these 4 steps.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And like I say, hopefully it's this sort of walkthrough has equipped you well to understand all of these different statements, reports, and the processes that should ideally be followed when going through your owner payment run. So I'm now going to sort of segue onto another bit of content in this session, and I've got 5 what I would call top tips for handling bookings, and a few of them are sort of COVID centric. So they deal with cancelling and moving bookings and how that impacts owner payments. So I'm sure that a lot of you have experienced, if not all, cancellations and bookings being moved, but you might not be at the stage where you're dealing with the owner payments or taking the owner payments back where bookings have been cancelled and owners have been paid. So I thought I'd look a little bit into that, and I've got a few more tips there as well for just handling owner payments and bookings in general. So first of all, let's look at a cancellation. So I've got a test booking here. Now, this booking needs to be cancelled. The guest can't come due to COVID, lockdown, etc. So the first thing we want to do is look at the owner payments tab. So I can see here that the owner's been paid for this booking. The guest is yet to arrive, but they have paid in full as well. So I need to cancel the booking and take the money back from the owner. And to do that, it's quite simple, but there are a couple of steps to that. So I click on cancel and cancel booking. So let's say that you were cancelling the booking, but the owner hadn't been paid yet. You can just follow this process as normal. Ensure that this box is ticked, and that will remove any owner payments in this tab and just balance it to 0. And you don't need to worry about that. There's nothing to adjust there. But what I'm going to do here is untick this and click confirm. So if I go back to the owner payments tab, I can see nothing's changed. That's fine. That's correct. That's how the system works. Box. And the important thing to note about this setting here is that when you make a change to a booking, it will cause the owner payments to be updated. So if you change the value of the booking, if you change the extras, anything that might affect an owner payment, if you've got this box ticked and you press save, it will change your owner payment. And you can see it in real time. In most cases here, it will adjust. So for this one, the system knows it's cancelled. So the system knows when I click that save button that it needs to take the money back from the owner. So again, I've got the owner prices, update owner prices, tick box on. If I click on save, it will take the money back. There's now a record there to take the money back from the owner. And of course, that can only be taken back if there's a positive value in the statement. So it's a case of adding that to your next payment run, and you can take that money back from the owner. So that's basically all there is to do with cancelled bookings. Just to reconfirm, you want to 0 the values, and then the system knows to take it back from the owner. If the owner hasn't been paid, then you can just remove those scheduled payments as part of the cancellation process. But if you don't tick that for any reason, if it's a mistake, you can always delete them in this section as well. So the next top tip I have, hopefully I get this one right, is just really quickly, when you move a booking, if the price changes and money's already been paid to a deposit, for example, then in order for the system to recalculate what is due to the owner, as in the remainder, so let's say a deposit's been paid, when you move that booking, you just want to make sure that the deposit value in the guest section matches what they've already paid, along with the balance, if that has been paid as well, and there's maybe just an extra bit to pay. And then the system will know exactly what is due back from the owner. If they don't match, then the system will start putting in minus figures into this owner tab. And I see this quite a lot. So this is why I wanted to cover it today. And yeah, that's the way to avoid that, is to get those deposit and balance tabs to match what has already been paid in the customer payments tab in here. Okay, so that's about all there is to moving a booking, I think. Before we move on, while we're on this subject of the update owner prices box. So like I say, that's a good way to easily let the system work out what's due back from an owner, to let it recalculate what's due to an owner when a booking is moved. But one sort of caveat to that is that if your commission settings have changed since this booking was placed, so if you've changed your percentage or you've changed the way that your commission is structured, then we don't recommend letting the system work it out for you, because that's where mistakes can happen, and that's where, because there's been two different or maybe even more than two different commission setting changes, the system will add minus figures, some random, so well, not random, but it thinks it's doing the right thing, adjustments. It'll add like adjustments to this owner payments tab. So in those situations, if you have changed the commission settings, we advise just to manually edit the values that are due to the owner. So to do that, you can just click on edit, and you see all the different sort of fields here for VAT, for the expense, whether it's a payment or an expense or an owed to. Yeah, and that's really all there is to it. But we do recommend, rather than letting the system work it out, because it will just become confused because there's been that many changes to commission settings. So it's best just to edit these manually, and you can even add a payment in manually as well, which I'll show you in a second. Okay, so the next tip I have is for extras. So let me just reinstate this booking so that we can start again. Okay, so there is what we call a sort of hack in the system for paying the value of an extra entirely to an owner, or paying it to yourself as a commission. So you might want to do this with your booking fees, so that your booking fees are paid to you as commission, and that will be included in your sort of commission report when you pay commission to yourself. And it makes it a little bit easier to track rather than just sort of looking at a statistics report on extras. So the hack is as follows, and this is all in the help center, of course, but you might not be aware of it. If you wanted to pay the extra as commission, so a booking fee, quite a good example, you put a -2% into here, and then that will tell the system to pay that as commission. So in these cases, you would set up an owner for your own business in Agency Add Owners, and you can just call it your business name and booking fees, for example. And then you can pay all of these booking fees as commission to yourself, and it will look like this. And what will happen in the booking is you'll have another owner payment section below for those booking fees. And again, that allows you to pay it to yourself as commission. So it's quite a useful feature to use. Like I say, it's a little bit of a hack that Robert created, but a lot of agencies are using that to pay booking fees.
It's actually like a really good tutorial we recorded just with the exact steps of how to set it up if it's a new sort of booking extra. But at the end, sort of, we'll point you to the right help centre area so you can see all this stuff in.
Yeah, of course. I think that's in the training manual, is it, Laura?
Yeah, it's definitely under the agency training videos section, which some people might not know about, so I think it'll be good just to show everyone where that is.
Perfect. So we can look at that shortly then. Okay, so the second hack is, you'll have noticed that it's not easy to pay an extra entirely to an owner, and that's because this section is just to tell the system how much to pay to an owner. So it's where you're actually giving a portion of that value to the owner. So let's say we've got a dog fee here, or a furry friend, could mean any number of things, and you wanted to pay all of that to your owner, you could put in here -1 and just put in 1 there for our quantity, and we'll just save that. So again, it's -1, not -2. -2 is for paying it as commission. And then when I go to my owner payments tab, it is paid the entire value of that extra to the owner. And again, that's all in the help center. We'll show you that just shortly. I've got one more tip, which I think makes 5, not been counting. And this is just how to add a one-off expense to a booking. So it could be for any number of sort of things, but it would need to be related to this booking. So if it's a general expense for maintenance, things like that, then it needs to be done in the statement itself, which Laura showed earlier on. But if you wanted to just add something related to this booking, you could put in a caption, choose the date that you wish for it to be added, choose an amount. Now the amount is the exact amount due from the owner. So you can also use this to add payments to the owner, of course, as well. And if you're using it for payments, you want to add in the money due to the owner after your commission and VAT deductions. And then when it's added to the statement, appreciate it's a bit of a fiddly process. We are looking to sort of streamline this, make it easier. But in the meantime, you add your figure due to the owner, and then when it's in, you click edit, and then you can add your VAT breakdown and commission breakdown as well. So I'm just going to add an expense, really easy to do. Let's just put in £100 and I'll click on save. And then that has added my expense to that booking, for that booking. And when I go into my statement, it will be linked, but all this Zoom stuff is in the way. There we go. And there's the expense. If I click into that, it'll take me through to the booking. It shows the booking details there as well, and the value of the expense. So yeah, so those are my sort of top tips. And like I say, these are things that I see quite often, and I deal with a lot of agencies, and these are just like the common things that clients maybe don't know about or they struggle with, particularly, you know, due to COVID. There's been a lot of cancellations, a lot of moved bookings, and it's not been 100% clear how to move them. It is all in the help center, but I think it's a lot better to explain it in a visual way like this rather than a help article, although they are really useful. It does help to see it in person, sort of thing. So yeah, so those are my tips, and let's just quickly look at the help center, and there's a wealth of material in there on pretty much everything SuperControl. If you notice that there's an article missing, or if you think an article should be added, please do let us know, because we're constantly trying to improve this.
I feel, just to show you where so all the things that we've covered today are under the agency sort of training videos. They're including agency training videos, which if you go to agency and then into the videos section, just at the bottom there, and there is the agency training video list. So as well, just to point out the booking fees, you can see the agency booking fees, sort of which Tom touched on. I would definitely say if that's something you're interested in setting up, then have a look at that video. But everything else we've covered in terms of paying owners, paying commission, etc., that's all included in there as well. So I noticed we've quite a few questions came through.
Just before we get on to questions, Laura, sorry.
Yeah.
I just want to plug the training manual as well. So if you've if you want a refresher, or if you have a new colleague, then no matter, you know, what sort of things they need to do in the system. The training manual has a wealth of material that includes agency, it includes the standard functionality, it's got channels, it's got, as you can see, housekeeping, price optimization, basically everything that you need to know as a new client to SuperControl. And it's the process also that is followed as part of onboarding. So if you're new to SuperControl, you'll recognize some of these sort of steps along the way. So yeah, I just wanted to quickly plug that because we put a lot of time into that, and we think it is a really good way to refresh and train new colleagues as well. Sorry, Laura, back to you, and we can look at some questions.
No, I was just going to